Okay.
Hello, welcome back to the Burn Fat and Feast podcast. My name is Sarah, your host. You guys, I am live and in person today with Shelly. And so let me introduce you to Shelly first of all. If you're watching this via YouTube, we look like a hot mess for a reason.
Because we are.
Right. Because we literally just we just finished filming workouts. So Shelly is one of our trainers here at Burn Fat and Feast, and we film our workouts every single month together. And we were just in my basement filming workouts, and we hopped up here to record a podcast episode. And so here we are. So yeah, here you get us all looking beautiful. If you're watching the visual version, if you're just listening to the podcast, you're welcome. So you guys, okay. So Shelly is, like I said, one of our trainers, but she's also a Burn Fat and Feast member. And I wanted to have her on today because she has made some changes in what she's doing. Now, she's been following the program for a long time, and I'll let her kind of tell you a little bit more about that. But she's made some changes recently, and a lot of our members have noticed and asked what she's doing. And so that's why we're here. We're going to talk about some things that she's changed, maybe some mindset things too that she's kind of worked through along this process, because some of it is physical, but some of it, we were discussing this before we went and recorded today, that some of it is a mindset shift. And so it's the power of consistency. Shelly was talking about consistency a moment ago too. And again, we'll get into that. But that's the premise of what we'll talk about today is consistency, what that means, where she was and how she has progressed, and how long. We're going to talk about that too.
Yeah.
How long it's taken for her to be here. And, if you've listened to us at all, we focus on progress over perfection. I also feel like there are times in our life where we're like, right, but progress over perfection. And we almost use that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that when Shelly was talking to me before we started recording, that's what came to my mind. So we'll dive into that too, with consistency, progress over perfection. Where's the line there? So we'll get into that. So Shelly, thank you for being here.
Yes.
So excited to have you in person, like not even, on a Zoom call. So first of all, tell us a little bit about how long you've been in Burn Fat and Feast, like what's the time frame and where you were, because this has been a few months process for you recently, where you were a few months ago.
Yeah. So I've been a Burn Fat and Feast member for 2 years, and it's a journey. There's no quick fix, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You can transform in 6 weeks, but when you look at the whole, I've been a member for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You ebb and flow, there's ups and downs. But for 2 years, I've been a part of the program.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to say that again. She's been with us for 2 years. And just recently, there have been some changes that she has made. So how long, Shelly, when did you kind of decide?
I think, January 1,
Okay.
just like any other, all right, it's a new year, it's a new me, just like everybody else. And it was like, let's take some photos, let's take some measurements, and let's work the program. Within the program, we've done some revamping as far as like increasing our protein and really talking about picking up those heavy weights.
Mhm.
They scare us. You feel like you'll fatigue out, you'll fail, nobody likes that. But I just decided January 1, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So to be clear, so Shelly decided in January, all right, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to do some things differently, but we're recording right now in July. All right. So to be clear, this is not like 6 weeks later. This is not 2 months later. This is over
half a year.
Months.
Yes.
Yeah. This
half
is
of
almost
the year.
7 months in to when she was like, okay, I'm going to do some things differently. All right. So we'll get to kind of the physical part, but what would you say when you were in January, you're like, okay, I'm going to make some changes. Why? Like what was going on in your head? And like kind of mindset part.
Again, been part of the program for 2 years. I work it, and then I just really felt like I was getting very complacent.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting very complacent. I was not picking up those big weights.
Mm-hmm.
I was using my 5s, using my 8s, getting through my 3 rounds, easily knocking out, that minute of whatever the exercise was, moving on, checking the box and not really feeling like I was seeing maybe the results. Very altruistic or, I know that sometimes it was very physical for me. I felt like I'm doing the work, I'm tracking my macro, I'm doing these things, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I love that you just said that you felt like you were being complacent because, you're like, yes, I physically wanted to look different, but there was such a mental piece of that too, right? You're like, I'm complacent. You were honest with yourself enough to say, I'm being complacent. I know that I am not doing the things that need to be done. And you said I was checking the boxes, like check, check, check. Like, I think we all like to do that. Like, yes, did it. Yes, did it. Moving on to the next thing. But when you're checking the box, are you actually checking the box to like, I did this to the best of my ability,
correct,
right?
Challenging myself.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of like, I love that you just shared that because we all get there. Like, this is part of my routine. And once it is your routine, once you get into the space where it's like, this is my routine. I eat this way. I work out consistently. I'm, going for the walk. I'm self-care. I'm sleeping. I'm, all the pieces, right? It's like, it's routine and that's what we want initially. But then the next part that we have to work through is how do I get out of now I'm complacent?
That next level.
Yeah. And like, okay, I'm doing it. And that's honestly a lot of times where people hit a plateau.
Yeah.
They're like, it's not working for me anymore. Well, is it not working for you or are you not working for it? Right.
Exactly.
So I love this because this is totally normal. We all get there. I've been there as well. So, okay. So you talked a lot about this was kind of physical for you. So explain what that meant.
I felt like I'm doing these workouts. I should maybe look a certain way, or I feel like I should feel like I have more muscle, or I feel like the inches should be falling off, or, whatever you want to, however you want to put that. I'm not a big scale person. You had said once very early on in some training, your worth is not determined by your gravitational pull on the scale. And after I heard you say, I'll get goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, I come from a generation that like, that's all we did. All you did was weigh yourself. That's all you did after vacation, every day, every morning, like, and you saying that in some training or a podcast, it was like a wave of relief washed over me. It's like, wow, she's right. She is right. That number on the scale does not determine my worth. And so I've never been that big number person, but I do, that lean look, that tone look, whatever, however you want to put it. I felt like that was something I wanted to strive for. And again, that's not a number on the scale. That's a putting in the hard work.
Yeah.
And that's where I had to ask myself, are you putting in the hard work?
Yeah.
And you don't have to work out for hours every day to put in the hard work. You really don't. If you are challenging yourself with that heavy weight, you don't need an hour and a half,
Yeah.
So that's what I love about the program is you go press play, 32 to maybe 40 minutes max, but you've got to put in the hard work.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So let's backtrack because, you mentioned growing up, like that's what we did, right? The stuff on the scale. Oh my gosh. Like, I think any of us that are in this phase of our life, late 30s, early 40s, even, early 50s, like that's what our parents did.
Yeah.
My mom was always on a diet, always like constantly on a diet. So we grew up with that mindset. And so for us to like erase, like the scale doesn't matter, it takes time.
Yeah.
And so good for you for, getting to that place where like, you're right. Like, this is stupid. This number doesn't define me. But at the end of the day, the reason that Burn Fat and Feast works and when it works is when we are, like you said, putting in the hard work, but being honest with ourselves about that hard work. So kind of walk through the steps of like, what did you do? Did you just decide like, this is it? Like where, think back to January, what were your kind of steps?
So what I love about the program is everything is laid out within the month.
Mhm.
And so I'd write everything down in my planner of like, okay, today's gonna be a strength day or upper body day or leg day, and then our cardio days. And I decided that, okay, if I'm going to do my 3 rounds, every round I do, I'm going to start lifting heavier weights. So the first round, I'll start with 8s. Then when I do round 2, I'm going to try 10s. And then when I do round 3, I'm going to try 12s. And then the next week, maybe I'd start with 10s and then 12s and then 15s, or whatever that space looked like that day. But I was going to challenge myself to go heavier every round I did. And I did that, 4, 6, 8 weeks. And that's where I've really felt like, again, I kind of planned it all out. It took a little bit of being honest, digging in, planning a little bit, to make sure that that's what I was going to commit to. And yeah, maybe if I got to that 3rd round and the weight was heavy and I couldn't get through the minute, that was fine. That was fine with me, because previously I was just more worried about, well, I've got to do this for that 1 minute. So once I kind of stepped back and allowed myself to like, that's all right. It's okay if you can't do it for that 1 minute. You're challenging yourself. Like, that's great. So then I just kind of built upon that.
Okay, there's so much here that I love. So what, just to kind of let you guys know that aren't familiar with Burn Fat and Feast, when we do our workouts, we do like 2 or 3 rounds of like a few exercises. So let's say like we have like 8 different exercises of legs for that day. Well, you're going to do those and then you'll do them again for like the 2nd round, so to speak. And then maybe you'll do them again for the 3rd round. So what Shelly is saying is that every time she did that, she upped her weight that day, like inside that workout, inside 30 minutes, she did her squats 3 times. Then every single time she did those squats, she added weights that day. I love this. We talk about increasing your weight. We talk about, in the next round, if you feel like it wasn't challenging for you, that's your opportunity to add weight to it. But the question is, are you doing it? Right?
Yeah.
You got to commit to doing that. And the other thing that I love that you said, Jelly, is, you have to remind yourself when you do that, you probably aren't going to be able to do it as long as you did the week before or the round before, because you're adding weights. That's part of the process. And I think that's where, a lot of it, I'll speak to women just because that's who we work with, but a lot of women really get hung up on that part of, oh, I feel like I failed because I couldn't go as long as I did the last time. Or like, I'm still squatting on the video and then you're like, I'm done. Like I'm tapped out. That's part of the process. That is part of creating strength and building upon it. So I love that you mentioned both of those things. So we also are, let's kind of stick to workouts because, there's a little nutrition part too that we'll talk about in a minute, but you also were talking about just consistency in general. And earlier, I think we were talking about this before we started recording about, you're like, well, I'll just skip that and skip that and skip that. So like kind of talk about what you were doing.
I would always, again, planning out the week, where my workout's going to be, when am I going to squeeze this in? But if there was like a cardio day, I'd be like, well, it's okay. We always do like, if you're going to skip a day, skip a cardio day. But I got so like, the cardio days were just being skipped.
All of them.
Like in general, for a couple months there, if it was a cardio day, I'm just going to skip it. And so I did bring myself back to, and I mean, I used to just do cardio all the time. And now I've just flipped to like, now I would just really prefer to do strength, but it is still important to get some cardio in. But I was just skipping it. So I pulled myself back into, I mean, you've got to do the 1 or 2 cardios. They're not all pretty. They're not all great, but I was committed to, I'm going to start with just do the 1, like just do 1. And then eventually it was like, okay, now if there's 2 for this week, like you're going to do 2 cardio days. And so that's really, been a game changer too.
So I love that you said that before we went live today, because it's so true. Like we can get to that point where it's like, oh, it's okay. A lot of times and I've mentioned this before, I think in trainings where I will say, don't don't let it be more than 2.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yes.
if you skip something, or if you have like a bad nutrition day, like don't let it happen more than 2 times,
Yeah.
because that's when we start snowballing into like
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just skip it, and I'll just skip it, and
Yeah.
I'll skip. And,
Yeah.
and I will say, disclaimer, I do say, if you're going to skip a day, skip a cardio day. Because our strength training, we need it so much, especially as we get older. But yeah, so I love that you mentioned that, because it's true. We don't want to let it, any of it, right? Like any part of the wellness puzzle, like kind of snowball into like, well, now I'm not doing it at all. I'm not tracking my macros. Now I'm not doing any cardio. And that's where I feel like there's a fine line of consistency versus progress over perfection,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have seen in our community before where women will say, well, progress over perfection, give yourself grace. And we need that.
Yes. Yes.
We so need that,
Yeah.
because we put so much pressure on ourselves in life.
Yeah.
But there's also a time where it's like, if you continually say progress over perfection and you're not doing it, then it's no longer consistent.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like where you were of like,
yeah.
are you giving yourself grace? Or are you just opting
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
Right.
And even like this other weekend, I was not able to get in a workout Friday or Saturday just because of life. And then Sunday's our rest day. But I happened to have like 40 minutes of time where a kid was somewhere, and then my husband took the 2 kids somewhere else. And I was like, well, I have 40 minutes. And I really just used the last 2 days as rest days because of life, and that's fine. But now today I'm given 40 uninterrupted minutes. I'm going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I'm going to turn that. Like, vacation's over. Like, let's get this workout in. And it just is like, wow, yes, this is the power then of not letting that, I'm going to give myself grace. It's Sunday. I just usually don't work out on Sundays. I'm going to rest, but it's like, well, I have rested the last 2 days. Like, let's go ahead and,
that honest
get that work in.
conversation with yourself too, of like,
Yeah.
okay, look,
Yeah.
you've already
Yeah.
done this.
Yeah.
Like,
Working out at Sunday at 3 isn't ideal, but I do have this time. I have this space, and this is how I want to fill it.
yeah.
So
Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. All right. So you also discuss a little bit like nutrition and maybe some changes that you made there. So talk about that.
Within the program, we've really focused, I think maybe the last 6 months, on revamping the macros, and you put so much work into our nutrition program and like what our macros should look like. And so increasing protein has just been huge. I mean, I don't even know what our macros were previously set to, but consciously looking at the protein every single day. And, yes, we eat carbs, but we also do eat a lot of protein. And so I've really made sure to look at those protein numbers, make sure they're up every day. And now the last 3 weeks, they haven't been, I mean, I can tell. And then I did get back into tracking. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I'm eating kind of how I used to eat maybe 6 months ago. It's just not enough protein. So it's like getting back into eating enough protein, lifting the heavy weights, changing that body composition really.
Yeah. That is so true. So we have made, we made these changes in December. So like, when you said you kind of decided to make some changes in January. So January is really where our entire community made this change into really the big push to get more protein in. And again, I love that you mentioned this, because I know some women are still struggling with that. It is a process, I would say. But sometimes I think we're like, well, it's not that. I mean, it's just protein. It's like not that big of a deal. When you get there and you start doing it consistently, you will feel a difference in gaining muscle mass, but also feeling satisfied, right? And not like, I need more food and I have these cravings. There's so many aspects of just your day that it's helping at the end of the day. And so, okay, I would love to ask you this though, Shelly, when you say like, you got more protein in, can you kind of walk us through the process for anyone that's listening right now thinking, I know I need to eat more protein, but I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. Like I'm still struggling. I think actually I saw recently in our community, somebody said that somebody was like, I'm still struggling to get my protein in. And then a bunch of ladies were like, do this, try this, whatever. Like there were so many ideas. But what would you say? Like what helped you get your protein in?
So I just love to make like ground turkey. Like I will on Sundays just make like 3 pounds of ground turkey. And then I portion it out through the week. And I mean, it is like I'm eating probably 6 ounces of ground turkey every day
Yeah.
for lunch. But I mean, like, I love it. I'm now to the point where I'm like, I just want to eat like ground turkey every day for lunch. Like, who am I? I mean, I look at the labels now too. And I think for a long time, a lot of things I thought were high protein were high fat. Like, I mean, peanut butter. I
Yeah.
love peanut butter. I do. I love peanut butter so
Yeah.
much. It is not a protein source.
Mhm.
When you really
Right,
look at a
right.
label,
Yep.
and like, it's fine. Yeah. Eat your peanut butter. That's fine. It's a little bit of protein, but it is not like eating 6 ounces of a ground
But it's
turkey or
mainly fat.
chicken or
Yeah,
yes, right?
right.
Or eating more, like a pork loin, or, I mean, I do eat yogurt and cottage cheese. So, trying to incorporate some of that. And I've been grabbing like edamame lately, like that's got a lot of protein. So really looking at that label and being honest with like, man, I wish this peanut butter had more protein in it, but it doesn't, So really trying to focus on, looking at those numbers,
Yeah.
reading those nutritional labels, and then sometimes doubling up, right? Like, okay, yeah, maybe a serving of turkey is 6 or 3 ounces, but I'm going to eat double,
Yeah,
and then
right.
like, I feel full,
Yeah.
right? Like I've eaten very voluminous food for my lunch. I'm not going to snack all afternoon, so that's been huge too.
Yeah.
And using like the BFF meal plan too, of like, okay, I'm going to make this bulk thing. Burger in a bowl is a great example. I mean, I eat burger in a bowl on repeat for lunch. I've got my pickles, got my, cottage cheese, tomatoes, like perfect. That's great for me.
Yeah.
So leaning into that too.
Yeah. That's great. And what you were mentioning, like you love the ground turkey, you have it all the time. Like, so you're planning ahead, obviously,
exactly.
and you're cooking it. And I think that's big. Bottom line, I think with anything, any macronutrient we're talking about, that we want to eat more of, if it's not easy, we're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it sounds silly, and it takes just a little bit of effort. But when you put in a little bit of effort to have it ready, to pre-cook it, to have it, there for you, that's what you're going to choose. I'm like everybody else. I'm gonna go in my pantry and grab popcorn because it's easy, right?
Yeah.
But if I have something else, my vegetables are cut up, or I've got turkey or chicken or whatever that's already cooked, I'm gonna grab that as well because it's easy. So we just need to make it easy for ourselves.
Exactly.
And then slowly add to what we're eating. So the workouts, the nutrition, and really like what I'm hearing from you is just being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And nobody can do the work for you.
Mhm.
Like, we can tell you what to do. You can read anything on the internet. You can, listen, like, you have got to do the work. Like, that's really, there is a point where there's, you've got to choose your path.
Yeah.
I mean, that's only you can do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So how do you feel now? Like, so we're almost 7 months in.
Yeah.
So when you said in January,
Yeah.
I'm being complacent, I'm just checking the boxes. Like, how do you
I mean,
feel?
I feel strong. I feel energized. I'm ready to go buy 25-pound weights. Like, I just feel like, I feel confident too. Like, wow, this is like, I do feel like I've put in the work. I've challenged myself, and now I'm confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned earlier, and if you don't want to share, that's okay. Just tell me. But you mentioned earlier, like there have been physical changes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
do you
And
care to
so,
share that?
yes, absolutely. And like, I'll start with, I haven't lost a pound. Like, I was 162 pounds when I started this program. And if I stepped on a scale today, I'd be 162. That's what I weigh. But the inches, so I think I've lost 3 inches in my thighs, and then probably 4 in the waist. And then my biceps have grown an inch, but it's like, that's great. Like, I want strong biceps. It's actually exactly what I'm going for, so seeing like the inches lost in the thighs and the waist, and, for me, that's so much more satisfying than losing 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, it just is.
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, like you mentioned earlier, like that's just a number. It doesn't define who you are, your worth at all. And that number is just so messed up. Like, I'm not even going to get into all that about the scale and how messed up our scale is, because it's everything, it's what you ate yesterday,
Yeah,
you know, can
yeah.
impact the number on the scale today, and what you drank this morning. You drank like 12 ounces of water. You're going to weigh more. Like that's not fat. That's not, it truly means nothing.
Yeah.
But the inches that you lost are showing that you are making body composition changes.
Exactly.
3 inches off your thighs. That's huge.
It's huge.
I'm like,
That's
I'm
huge.
like, I'm like measuring myself. Like, did I get a maybe? I don't know. 3 inches off your thighs.
Yeah.
That's big. And I really thank you for sharing that, because Shelly's been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
In January of this year, she made changes, mentally decided, okay, drawing a line in the sand right now. I'm complacent. I am checking boxes. I need to be consistent. I need to be honest with myself. I need to challenge myself more. She decided, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do it differently. And it's been almost 7 months. She weighs the same. Her inches are very different in her thighs and her waist. Her arms are getting stronger. That is what we call the power of consistency.
Yeah.
That's the consistency. And I think if you walk away with anything today with this, I want you to remind yourself that complacency is part of the journey. It just is. We all become complacent. We become complacent in our relationships.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Life.
and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Like name something.
Yeah.
We're probably complacent in our jobs, like what we do with our kids. Like there's complacency in our life. We have to be cognizant of the complacency and say, okay, sometimes we're complacent, like we're good here, right? Complacency is good. Like maybe your relationship is in a place where you're like, this is what I want. Like, I don't really want anything. I don't want to grow here. But if you are not where you want to be in anything in your life, ask yourself, am I complacent? Am I really challenging myself mentally, physically? And what can I do to make that change? Because we have that power. And we talked earlier about the consistency of what Shelly was saying about the cardio workouts and just opting out, and where that drawing that line of like, what's progress over perfection versus I'm just not doing it anymore. Like, are you giving yourself the excuse, right? Has progress over perfection or giving yourself grace actually become an excuse for you to opt out of things, right? So all of that kind of is bucketed into the same thing. Consistency, the progress over perfection, what you're doing versus what you're not, walking through that journey. And so I think asking yourself that honest question, and, Shelly said it many times, like, I wasn't being honest with myself. I had to like sit down and do that. That's huge. And I think we can all walk away today and think, okay, take a second. Am I doing truly what I want to get the results that I want? Right?
Exactly.
Anything else you'd add?
I don't think so.
I mean, so amazing. I love this interview so much. And it's even more special because she's sitting right beside me. Thank you so much, Shelly, for sharing and being so vulnerable. Many of our ladies in our community have said to you, like she was leading one of our live workouts a few Saturdays ago, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? What are you doing different? And I know, like, when we ask this many times, like we want like whatever the secret is, right?
Yeah.
What's the secret?
Yeah.
But there's some great nuggets here of what you are doing and reminders for all of us throughout our journey, no matter where we are in our journey. So thank you so much for being here.